Well, glad to be back. Welcome to another edition, a brand new edition, finally, of Holding Court here on the First State Hoops Report YouTube channel. I'm, of course, FSHR founding editor Chris Stevens, and the season's been over for 2 weeks. Hopefully, you all have been doing well in the interim. Why wasn't there a holding court following the state championship game? Why wasn't there a holding court following the release of DSBA's All-State team? I felt like I got hit by a truck. I actually started feeling bad, like I had a little throat scratch the night of the boys' championship game. Then the following day, felt like I just got literally run over by a Mack truck, the 18-wheeler variety. And so I didn't do one Sunday, the Sunday before last, not the Sunday just passed, but the Sunday after the state championship game, which was March 12th, because today's the 26th as I'm recording this. And I started feeling better enough to to have lunch with my Delaware Sports Writer and Broadcast Association colleagues to have lunch and go over the all-state ballots and, put the teams together and then release them. And then Sunday, the 19th, I had every intention. In fact, I recorded like 3 different versions of Holding Court, but my throat had all the frogs in it. Kermit, Michigan J Frog, the frog from the Never Ending Story, all of them was just all up in here. My voice sounded horrible, and I was like, nope, I'm not going to try to do this. I'm not going to, put forth a shoddy effort, just to say that, Holding Court was out. So that's when I put it across social media that, hey, I'm feeling like crap. I will get back to you guys when I'm not. And thankfully, I feel much better. Thank goodness it wasn't Rona. I tested for that. I did a home test Sunday when I started feeling like, bam, it was like, yeah, let me go ahead and see if this is what I think it is, but it's not. It was just common cold, thank goodness. Anyway, so 2022-2023 boys and girls basketball season has come to a close. We are now in the throes of spring sports. Shouts out to the spring sports athletes. May you all have a very successful season. And I wanted to talk about the state tournaments. We'll do that in a minute, but I did want to talk about lists and all-state teams. And as someone who is familiar with the process for DSBA, because I voted for DSBA for God knows how long, and I want people to understand that, and like I said at the beginning of the year when the News Journal put out their list of the top boys and girls basketball players, what people have to understand as far as like all-state votes goes, not everybody has a voice, but you can have a voice. Like the media, we are instructed to turn in ballots before the semifinals of the boys and girls state tournament. So it's not like we do the whole season taking into account people who had great Bob performances. Like, I'll just throw out an example. Isaiah Henson of Sal's, like he was, if there was a most outstanding player in the tournament award, which I think they need to bring back, quite frankly, I think that would be cool. So if there was a most outstanding player in the tournament for the boys side, it absolutely would have been Isaiah Henson. Make no mistakes about it. And it probably would have gotten him on first team. But everyone voted before coaches and media, mind you, are instructed to turn in their ballots before the semifinals. So everything leading up through the quarters is what counted for a lot of people. And the thing is with these ballots, and I mean, I'm not going to go too deep into the process because, again, I have respect for my DSBA colleagues, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus because, folks are upset that this player didn't make All-State, this player didn't make first team, this player didn't make second team, this player didn't make third team or honorable mention. Not going to do that. But I do want people to understand that, again, it is not a personal thing. It's not like, some of these folks just go out of their way to be malicious and say, well, I'm not going to vote for this kid because of this. I'm not going to vote for this kid because of that. I would be very disappointed if that was the case because I take the process seriously. I vote on who I see. I vote on how I feel they played all year and went with that. And my ballot wasn't too far off from what everyone else in the room was thinking. As far as what the coaches vote, that's perfectly up to the coaches. That's what they do. Some will vote for their kids. Some will vote for other kids. That's their ballots. But it's not a personal thing. It's not anyone being slighted, purposely. I'll say. But I feel like the best, the bracket that came out were the best ones. The ones that, everyone sort of was in concert on as far as like player of the year and first teams go. So it's not anything to be totally upset about. I mean, if you're a senior, I get why you feel like you may have been slighted, but if you are an underclassman, it should motivate you, to come back stronger, come back better. And everyone's going to have their chance to do that. And I mean, everyone that hasn't graduated, I'll say. So that is my take on, I mean, I know Brad Myers just released another list for the News Journal. And again, what people don't understand, again, we're going to do this. Media 101, New Media 101 with Professor Stevens. Classes in session. Ready? Okay. Newspapers and news outlets that were print-based for the longest time don't have print to fall back on anymore, because people reading is something that has become passé. Like, no one really likes to sit down with the newspaper anymore because it's just not plausible. Because now that, we have, this wonderful thing called the internet, and that people can read things online or on their computers, on their smartphones, newspapers just ain't what they were. And it breaks my heart because that's the industry I got in 21 years ago. Like, my first journalism experience was writing for the Hornet newspaper at Delaware State University. Of course, I waited until the end of the season to put on, well, actually, I think I wore a Del State shirt before, but I mean, season's over. I don't feel like I'm, I can probably I probably rep my alma mater anyway. So, but yeah, this was, I just felt like throwing this on this morning. But anyway, I started in newspapers back in 2002. This 2023. It is honestly, the industry was trending towards an online format back in the early 2000s. So, I mean, it's not like, no one didn't see this coming. I'll say that the people in the media industry, that the bean counters weren't prepared for it. And then now we have this thing where people who don't understand journalism are buying up all the newspaper outlets, all the writing outlets. So now you've got these new, the writers and editors have new directions on what to publish. And clicks sell. They do. So, people will say that, whatever lists people come up with for this top, this top 50, this top 75, this top 100 or what have you, it's meant to inflame. It's meant to trigger. I don't think that's the case. It's meant for y'all to click on it. What you feel about it is how you feel about it. But it gets a conversation going. And unfortunately, the way journalism has been skewed nowadays is that it's more important to have a conversation than it is to have the facts. And I'm not saying that news journalism is fact-based, because they are. They have been. They've been Delaware's largest newspaper longer than any of us have been alive. So, when you see those lists, I mean, how y'all feel about it is how y'all feel about it. I'm not going to take away your feelings or how you digest or consume that information. But I think, the launch personal attacks against people who are just literally doing their jobs is just, that's what happens when you have a former president who says things like fake news. And now you have a guy who runs Twitter who's taking away verified accounts, which means that people can just throw anything to the wall and people will believe it because, nobody's verified anymore. It's an evil world we live in. It's, from a journalist standpoint. So that's my take on lists. That's my take on All State. I'm not a hard person to find. You want to discuss this with me? Hopefully I'll be a little more clean shaven. I haven't felt so bad. I mean, I've been feeling so bad that I haven't shaved in God knows how long. I usually come on here with a fresh baldy and, the sides of my face slicked down, but, chopped up. I mean, buzzed, but I just haven't been feeling like it. I may save that for Friday, because Friday I am happy to share that I'll be on the call for Nigel Alexander's One Journey Hoop Classic at Odessa High School. It's going to be a great event. Please come out Friday, March 31st, Odessa High School. Brand new high school, beautiful gym. We're gonna have an eighth grade boys game. We're gonna have a girls high school game. It's gonna be a guys high school game. Game start at 5:30. The doors open at 5. Come through. You know, if you can stand the sound of my voice, I mean, my voice isn't gonna be as, you know, risky. I mean, I'll probably put a lot more flavor and emphasis into it when we get to announcing the game and everything, because that's what an announcer does. So please come through, join us. We'll be seeing the ballers of tomorrow, the ballers that are going to go off and play in college and do great things. So yeah, Friday, March 31st, Odessa High School One Journey Hoop Classic. Come through. I'll be on the call. Thanks to Nigel Alexander for the opportunity. Greatly appreciate it. All right, now, state tournament time. It was a fun state tournament for the most part. I don't think that anything deviated from form, but it wasn't like everything was just absolute, you know, beat down on the way to the bottom. I think the one surprise, honestly, and you can't even call, I mean, the two surprises on the boys and girls side, you can't even call them surprises, honestly, was William Penn getting to the state championship game and Woodbridge and the girls making it to the Final Four. Woodbridge was an 11 seed in name only. They were victimized because the Henlope and Salvages was not as good as it's been in previous years. You know, Woodbridge finished 17-3. Their 3 losses were to, I think they lost to an out-of-state team. They lost to Ursuline, and they lost to Caravelle. Everybody else they beat. And yeah, I think they lost to a team, I think it was either at She Got Game or something down, or, you know, one of the Governor's Challenge games. I can't remember which. I don't feel like pulling it up now. I just don't. I'm sorry. But they only lost 3 games in regular season. 2 to Delaware teams were 2 teams that were in the Final Four with them. And they played Ursuline tougher the second time around. Isaiah Robinson deserves a lot of credit for having that team ready to go. And they'll probably end up winning the Henlope and South again next year. And I think, you know, the bracket just worked out for them in a way where they saw a Seaford team that they had already beaten twice. They were more athletic than Archmere, and they only lost to Cape by 1 point in the Henlope title game. So, you know, familiarity breeds, you know, not contempt, but just, you know, a better knowledge of who you're playing. So, you know, Woodbridge girls making the Final Four, you could call it a surprise because they were an 11 seed, but it really wasn't a surprise. William Penn boys making to the Final Four. I think people underestimated Penn because, you know, it was, I think, what am I saying here? Yeah, they were just like a smaller team than people expect from William Penn in previous years, but they played lights out defense, timely shooting, and every time I saw them, they were well prepared. You know, that's Gary Lumpkin and Tail Davis, you know, two William Penn icons running the program. So, you know, they just weren't going to let those kids half step. And again, holding Seaford to 61 points was, you know, ring the alarm enough, but holding them scoreless over the last 4 minutes to do it, that's pretty doggone impressive. And they shut off Howard's lights and water very quickly. You know, Howard had a good start to the first quarter in that first Final Four game, and then it just kind of, you know, not fell apart, but just William Penn, just did a phenomenal job on defense as they always do. And they broke Howard's press a lot. Then, of course, they were in the championship game until the final 5 seconds against Salesianum. And Salesianum has proven themselves to be the team to beat for next year, and probably the year after that. And it's probably going to be a point of contention for a lot of people that this team backed up their talk, because, you know, depending on how you feel, I mean, I don't play favorites, so it really doesn't move my needle by any stretch. But I know a lot of people, you know, were rooting, you know, it was like the News Journal said, it was a rough winter for the anyone but Sally's crowd. And I mean, of course, they swept every boys winter event, you know, wrestling, indoor track, swimming, boys hoops. They won the Philadelphia Catholic League Ice Hockey Championship. I really wish we had more ice hockey teams here in Delaware, by the way. Hockey's a wonderful sport. When I was living in St. Mary's County, Maryland, I covered high school hockey and had a blast doing it. Granted, it was cold in those rinks, and I don't do cold much. As you can see, I've been kind of hunkered down because I was, cold got me sick, quite frankly. But ice hockey is a great sport. I wish we had more of a base for it here in Delaware for high school kids. But again, Salesianum won everything that, people expected them or didn't expect them to win, especially for basketball. That, might hurt some people's feelings, but they're like Jason Kelsey when the Eagles won the Super Bowl the first time around. Nobody likes us. We don't care. And that's how they operate. And you got to respect it because, they have the talent. They lose Brandon Buffon and I think Nate Ray and a couple of other seniors that saw time for them last year. Mostly everybody returns for that team next year. Isaiah Henson's back. Justin Hines, Kareem Thomas, Anthony Smith, Robbie Johnson Jr. That's a starting five that would give most Philly Catholic teams hell. And I think that's probably where they'll end up going, with their conference schedule next year because they play Newman Goretti already every year anyway. So that's a game that I hope is at the bottom. Either, you get Rob and Munch down here for Newman Goretti. Put that in the field house with Sally's. Tickets will be gone in like 10 seconds, guaranteed. And you don't even have to, if you want to get fly with it, make it a doubleheader. Have them open for the Blue Coats if that's how you want to do it. But that's a game I would like to see at the field house or even the bottom. Not going to happen, and we'll talk more about the DIA, stuff, as we get closer towards the end of the episode. But the boys' state tournament was pretty solid all around, no complaints. The 4 teams that made the Final Four deserved to make the Final Four, played like they deserved to be there. And they did what they were supposed to do. Middletown, that was the team that everyone had as a favorite. That was my favorite going into the tournament. And they played very well. Shouts out to Coach Ali, fellow Howard Wildcat alum, and those kids. It's tough to lose a game in the Bob under those circumstances. Isaiah Henson makes a great shot, at the end. And it's a tough way to end your high school career for a few of those seniors, but those kids have nothing to be ashamed of. Like, they were fun to watch all year long. Howard, they lose a couple of key pieces. The Richards Powell twins will graduate. Marcus Johnson graduates. Tyler Scruggs graduates. But RJ Matthews is coming back. Jameer DeShields is coming back. And that JV, Howard's JV, I think went 17-1, I believe it was. And when you can stockpile talent like that, the only thing is just getting them up to varsity speed. And I'm quite sure those kids will be ready because they'll be doing all the summer leagues, all the AAUs, and all that good stuff. So, Penn, they were a bit of a surprise. They were senior heavy, but they'll probably reload as well. And that's everybody that was in the Final Four. I don't know why I was tempted to name a 15, unless there was something in the rule books that changed. Those were the 4 in the Final Four for the boys. But great boys tournament. There's a lot of talent on the boys' side that returns next year as well, especially Polytech. Darrell Little Jr. comes back and lead that team. Dover's youngins will have another year of experience. Apple's youngins will have another year of experience under their belts. There's a lot to like about the boys' side, and we'll talk about that actually more the further we get into the summer, because what I plan to do with Holding Court is I still want to do this as a weekly thing, but I'll probably have some guests on, like coaches here and there, maybe a couple of players who are playing in college, because we got a lot of college players who have just wrapped up careers or just wrapped up seasons, successful college seasons at the D1, D2, D3, NAIA level, JUCOs. We'll get them all on for you. So Holding Court is not going to end with high school season. Guaranteed. Matter of fact, I already got my first guest in mind. I'll let y'all know when that develops. Girls tournament. It was as expected. Sanford and Ursuline at the end. Great championship game. Sanford's experience won out. They had just a little more scoring. And I think what made that game so intriguing was it was a mirror image of when these two teams played the first time around. Sanford gets off to a good start. Ursuline gets back into it. Sanford pulls away at the end. And for those kids that are returning for Ursuline, that is going to be a motivating factor for them. I mean, they return 95% of that roster, literally. Gigi comes back. Taylor comes back. Emma Anthony, Abby Grillo, Jordan Tate, Jazz Wesley, Shamira, Marshall Brothers. That is an 8 that is just and they're going to be tough to stop. And losing a championship game hurts. Like, you know, we saw how those girls felt. And no one likes to lose, but if anybody's gonna come back stronger, it's a John Noonan coach team. And they played their hearts out for 32 minutes. Almost had it. When Gigi went on that run to start the fourth quarter, I was like, man, this is the crowning of a new queen right here. Like, you know, she found players open. Like, you know, the turnover that tied the game in 44 when she hit the Euro step in the right hand lay off the right hand. I said, oh my God. Like, 8th graders don't do stuff like that, y'all. I mean, please understand that we're watching a generational talent here. Like, going back to like Elena Deladine, Khadijah Rushton, Val Whiting, anybody else you want to name who was GOAT level in those days, Lenny Wilson, anybody you want to name, like, this is the next Supreme. Like, Gigi's next up, and her backcourt partner Taylor Brown is no slouch either. Like, she's the best defensive player in the state, girls, and she's an 8th grader. Like, I see why they call her the glove. Like, she's all over the court. Both of them are. But yeah, this is about Sanford and a team that went through heartbreak twice in the previous 2 times. That 21 final that was at Dover High, God, I hate that final was at Dover High. Oh, my God. Driving to Dover on back-to-back dates was not my idea of fun. I'm just going to say it. Sorry. That pandemic championship, oh, my God, just was exhaustive. But Sanford had that one up to about the final 2 or 3 minutes of the fourth quarter. They came back against Caravel last year at the Bob, took the lead in overtime, but then, you know, Josiah Crawford hits that one last bomb, and then India Johnston finishes off her storybook career with a state championship. There was only one way for this Sanford season to end: championship or bust. And they pulled it out. And credit goes to, you know, the role players that stepped up when Zai Kilgo got hurt after she tried to take the charge on Gigi, because that was devastating to watch. I mean, you could hear the thud when Zai hit the floor. Thankfully, she's all right now. But, you know, Dallas Pierce took over, you know, point guard duties. Jada Snow made some free throws down the stretch. Zoe Cashner made free throws down the stretch. Tyler Edwards hit a big jumper. You need 3 or 4 players on a high school level to win a state championship. You need 3 or 4 that can score, defend, rebound, do something. That you just need 3 or 4 to do something, you know, to affect the outcome of the game. Not just do something, but do something to affect the outcome of the game. And Sanford had their 3 or 4. They had Pierce, they had Snow, they had Cashner, they had Edwards, they had Allen coming in playing defense and rebounding. Literally, that's all you need, boys or girls. And that's why Sal's was able to do it, because they had 5 players, honestly. Yeah, Isaiah Henson, Kareem Thomas, Justin Hines, Robbie Johnson Jr., Anthony Smith. You know, there's talent there. There's talent in the state of Delaware. And when you have 4 players that can affect the outcome of a game in a positive fashion for your team, that's how you win state championships. That's how Sanford won it. That's how Sanford won the girls. That's how Salesiana won the boys. And it wrapped up a pretty cool season. We had 11. Yes, we had 11 players reach 1,000 points. We had Clay Long from Greenwood Mennonite, who, of course, not part of DIA, but, of course, Greenwood Mennonite is in Greenwood, Delaware. So, Delaware kid, 1,000 points. We had, you know, Dallas Pierce doing it on the last 2 free throws of her career. Like, in the clinch the state championship, like, you can't write that kind of story. You know, if someone wrote that story where a senior who had gone through heartbreak the last 2 state championship games, and someone writes the story, says, here, she's going to win a state championship. She's going to score her 1,000th point on 2 free throws, the last 2 shots of her career, and she's going to win state player of the year. And somebody hands that story to Hollywood. Hollywood's going to hand it back to you. Say, no one will believe it. That's the story, man. That's the story. I mean, and that was just one story this year. I mean, You can look around the state for great stories like the AI DuPont girls team. Shout out to my guy, Lucky Price. He had those girls ready all season long. You can look at, Tower Hill playing strong throughout the season. Dean Shepard scoring his 1,000th point. You can look at the girls' side of things with Erica Huggins carrying that team to the second round of the state tournament. The Ursuline girls' arrival on the scene. There's so much about this season that I'm going to remember. And the one thing I'm going to remember the most is just how nice these kids were in the interviews. Like, some of them are nervous. Some of them are like, I don't know what I'm going to say on camera. Can you tell me the questions? I mean, I think that's, part of the fun part of this job is kind of like getting these kids prepared for success. And I'm not taking any credit for their basketball skills. That's firmly their coaches, trainers, and, parents and, people that have, are in the gym with them. Shout out to Drake. I wasn't with y'all shooting in the gym, but I come to the gyms to watch y'all play. And I know a lot of kids aren't used to media exposure, but it's going to be important that we as media show up and let them know that, hey, y'all are good enough to where people are going to stick a microphone in your face and say, hey, how'd you do this? How you feel about this? And you got to be ready. And that's why if you notice First State Hoops Report, I don't use a microphone because number one, the camera that I use is so doggone dope. Shout out to the Sony A7 II that I don't have to use a microphone because the built-in audio is so doggone good that it carries. So, I mean, I try not to add too much nervousness to the kids, just like, bam, here's the microphone. I know some people still like microphone. Don't get me wrong. Sean Green does a great job interviewing kids, so I'm not going to take away from anybody still using a microphone, but that's, just my little secret sauce is that I don't want to make it any more difficult on you guys. I just want you guys to stand there, be cool, and just like, hey, tell me what you think, how this work, how this play work, how'd y'all go on this run, do that. And they're like, okay, I can do that. And they have given doggone good answers. Like, these are smart kids and they're nice kids for the most part, so it's fun, watching them hoop. It's heartbreaking to see some of their careers come to end the way they have. It's exciting to see some kids have, moments of triumph. And that's why we do this. That's why we're here. And it's been so much fun the last 4 years watching kids, score 1,000 points, play, make All-State, shine in the state tournament, get college offers, sign letters of intent, then go off to be, well, it's too early because I started this in 2019. So I guess the first class I can probably say is this class is graduating now, the 2023 kids. Like, these kids were freshmen when the pandemic hit. And then sophomore years, that's why it's amazing that so many kids reached 1,000 points this year. Once again, Sean Green I had a conversation about 1,000 points, and he made a great point. You have to score at least 16, 17 points a game in 60 high school games to get 1,000 points. A lot of these kids barely got the 60, because the pandemic year teams were limited to 12 and 15 games. Some teams played 11 or 10 in the regular season. So be able to, still get to 1,000 points in spite of losing, half your season or in between half and 35% of your season, as a sophomore, mind you. Because, you take it for granted that kids that are juniors and seniors, the ones that are good are going to be good. But to know that as a sophomore that, you have the outside chance at a grand and you get there in your senior season, it's pretty cool. So shout out to those 1,000-point scorers. Shout out to everybody that played high school basketball in Delaware this year. Every player, every coach, every fan. It has been fun meeting you guys in the gyms, talking shop. There are so many people, that I'm going to miss names on because I didn't write this down. I normally take notes to start the episodes and then I just, go from the notes. But, I'm just, talking from the heart here because I owed you guys an episode because I was feeling like garbage the previous 2 weeks. And it was just like, well, I finally get the chance to finish this season strong. And it's because of y'all that First State Hoops Report has skin in the game. We're thought of as a reliable source for high school basketball coverage. And that's because y'all entrust me to tell the stories. And I'm eternally grateful. And just want to thank y'all for a wonderful year. And once again, we're not done. We're going to do holding court, with guests. If I can make it to some of these summer leagues and AAU things. I know Spooky Nuke is the place, But I know Spooky Nuke had some problems the last couple of years. And driving to Lancaster has always, been a drive that I don't make as a general rule. But if y'all are at Spooky Nuke, then doggone it, I guess I'll just have to go. So I will see y'all in the spring, in the summer, and in the fall. Once again, thank y'all for watching Holding Court. Every piece of information that you need to catch up with us, all our social media channels, the email address where you can reach me, the website, all will be in the description below. So thank y'all once again. Once again, this is not the last episode of Holding Court you will get this year. It's just a recap of the regular season. Thank y'all for watching. Until next time, I will see y'all in the gyms. I'll see y'all out and about. Y'all take care of yourselves. Enjoy the great weather that's coming. And hey, thanks again. Peace out.